With the college football bracket being officially here, the Alabama Crimson Tide have made it. Notre Dame has been left out. Miami is in, BYU is out, Texas is out, and Vanderbilt is out. And then we have teams like James Madison and Tulane in. I'm going to go in and really talk about what happened this weekend, what the committee picked. Did they make the right choices? And then I'm going to talk about the conference championship auto bids. James Madison and Tulane getting in. Is it really what's best for the sport of college football? And prepare for a big rant towards the end of this video because I got some really strong feelings about what this playoff looks like. So on Saturday, we had our main conference championship games. Texas Tech smoked BYU, Georgia smoked Alabama, and then Indiana beat Ohio State in a close game to win the Big Ten. And then we had Duke beat UVA in overtime. I'll talk about that one a little later. But with the conclusion of the championship weekend, we were able to get our finished bracket for the college football playoffs and our finished rankings for the playoffs. So with Indiana, who is the number 2 seed coming into the Big Ten championship game, winning it, they move up to the number 1 seed in the college football playoffs. No one has a problem with that. It makes all the sense in the world. It's how it should be. They're now the best team in the country. Ohio State, the loser of the Big Ten championship, is number 2. Georgia, who won the SEC championship, is number 3. I honestly thought Georgia was going to be the 2 seed, but I think it makes sense. Both have one loss. Ohio State only losing to the number 1 team is the better loss. So Ohio State knocks down to number 2, Georgia number 3, then Texas Tech. We all knew they were going to be the 4th seed if they won. Then at 5, 6, 7, 8, we have 4 teams that did not play this weekend. We have Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. They were kind of solidified within those spots. The only thing that was going to change is if BYU would have won, Texas Tech probably would have been in that range. And if Alabama would have won, Georgia probably would have been in that range because both those teams had better resumes than those 4 teams, but those 2 teams won, so they are in the top 4 seeds. Then that's when it gets a little more up to debate. Alabama stays at number 9, even with a loss. Miami jumps Notre Dame and BYU to that 10 spot. And then Notre Dame and BYU, who are 11-12, get knocked out for the rest of the conference auto bids, which again, we will talk about those later. So did the committee make the right decision with Alabama at 9 and Miami at 10? That's the biggest question. And let's start with Alabama, right? Because that one's a little more simple to me. Alabama entered the conference championship game ranked number 9, right? To me, that means they're in the playoffs. I don't think you should be penalized for playing an extra game that is a conference championship game against the number 3 team in the country. And I know what you're saying. Ohio State got penalized for losing theirs. BYU got penalized for losing theirs. Not really, though. Now, do I think Bama maybe should have slid from that 9 spot to that 10 spot? Honestly, yeah, probably. But Bama should not get penalized to get knocked out of the playoffs, even if it was a really bad loss. If they start penalizing these teams that were already in the playoffs, they're not going to want to even participate in the conference championship game. And that's the difference. Bama, being at 9, was already in the playoffs before the conference championship game. And I know there's a lot of BYU fans that are mad that they get knocked out of the playoffs for losing, but the difference is they were at 11. And with the 2 conference championship auto bids that were not in the top 12, whether it was the ACC and UVA, obviously Tulane, and then JMU, whatever the combination that was going to happen, it ended up being JMU and Tulane. But we knew going into Saturday that the 11th seed and the 12th seed were going to be 2 different conference champions that were not in the top 12. So BYU, seeing that they were at 11, was not in the playoffs without a win. That's just how it is. So I know a lot of BYU fans are upset that Alabama got in and BYU didn't. And I get why they're upset, but that's not where they should be upset at. Their anger is honestly displaced when they should be really mad at the other one-loss teams that got in without even playing a conference championship game. Now, I'm not saying BYU has the best resume in the world, but it's pretty damn good. BYU only had 1 loss in the regular season. That was to Texas Tech, who was one of the best teams in the country. One of the few teams that honestly I think has a real shot at winning the national championship game. And then after that, they beat Arizona, they beat Utah, they beat Iowa State. They looked really good this year with only 1 loss being Texas Tech, right? And then you compare that to, like, let's say Oregon, who, yes, their 1 loss is better, being Indiana, but they beat Penn State when Penn State was still ranked, but then they fell off hard. I still give them a lot of credit for that win because I think that loss was what set Penn State down the spiral. Then they beat Iowa, they beat Washington, but they don't have as good wins as like Utah and maybe even Arizona and Iowa State. Those are probably on the same level as Iowa and Washington. And then you have Ole Miss, who Ole Miss lost to Georgia. It's one of the best losses in the country still. And then their best wins are Tulane, Oklahoma would be their best win, and then they beat LSU before LSU fell off. And then you have Texas A&M, again, another one-loss team who lost to Texas the last game of the year, and their biggest win was Notre Dame. Great win. Other than that, they beat an LSU team that was already spiraling out of control. They beat a Missouri team that was ranked, but they were having a lot of injuries. So to be honest, if you're BYU and you're mad, right? Don't be mad at Alabama staying in the playoffs after conference championship loss. Be mad that they ranked you way lower than all these other one-loss teams that didn't have as big of a resume. Because even though Alabama has a bad loss versus Florida State, that Florida State team was different at the beginning of the year. But it is something to take note of. But Alabama arguably has the best win in the regular season. I say the regular season because Indiana beating Ohio State in the conference championship game is the best win. But other than that, Alabama beating Georgia in Athens is the best win of the regular season because Ohio State didn't lose, Indiana didn't lose, Georgia only lost one game, right? So Alabama had to be in the playoffs having the best win. And then Alabama also had wins over a ranked Vanderbilt team that was almost in the playoffs, against a healthy Missouri team. They beat Tennessee when they were ranked in 11th, I think, maybe 12th. So Alabama deserves to be in. If you're BYU, your anger should be displaced towards a team like Ole Miss or a team like Oklahoma or Texas A&M or even Miami, whose resumes were still very comparable. But to be honest, I don't think the committee wanted BYU in, so they were ranking them 11 on purpose, knowing that if they won the conference championship, we'll put them in. If they don't win it, we can kick them out. And then you have the Miami, Notre Dame, Texas, Vanderbilt situation. Which one of those teams deserved to get in? And here's the thing. I honestly think they made the right decision based on merit. Now, based on the team itself, if you're just playing the eye test, I would say Notre Dame is probably the best team in that bunch. Texas is probably second, Miami third, Vanderbilt fourth. You have to take into account what you've done this season. We can't just base it on who the best team is. You have to actually go on the field and perform. And that's what Miami did. Yes, they have 2 bad losses versus Notre Dame has no bad losses. But then you look at Notre Dame's best wins. And yes, they beat Pitt, which was a ranked team at the time. They beat a very good USC team, and they beat a very good Navy team. And to be honest, if there was one extra open spot, I would say Notre Dame has the best resume to get in. Because their only 2 losses were against Miami and against Texas A&M, both teams playoff caliber teams. And they were both very close losses. But they don't have the wins that Miami has. Because Miami also beat that Pitt team that Notre Dame beat. Miami beat Notre Dame in the beginning of the season. So you look at these 2 teams that have very similar resumes. If they're the same resume, almost, you have to take the team that won the head-to-head. Miami beat Notre Dame. They deserve to be in the playoffs above Notre Dame. Now, if you're BYU, if you're Texas, if you're Vanderbilt, and you have similar resumes, you can argue semantics about better wins, better losses, because Miami does have the worst losses. But when it comes to Notre Dame versus Miami, Miami deserved to be in that above Notre Dame. So in reality, did the committee make the right decision? I think they did. You never know, because that's the problem with college football, is everyone has such different resumes and everyone plays such different schedules. It's hard to really compare, does a team like Vanderbilt or Notre Dame have a better resume than Ole Miss or Oklahoma? Maybe. I think with the way college football is, I think the committee made the right decisions when it came to the at-bid teams. Would I have think it had been a really bad decision to bounce Miami instead of Notre Dame? No. But I do think Miami deserved to be in because you have to take into account the head-to-heads. Now let's talk about the biggest controversy in the college football playoffs. It's not Miami, it's not Notre Dame, not BYU. It's the fact that 2 Group of 5 teams made it. Now we knew one was going to make it, obviously, because the rule is 5 conference champions have to be in the playoffs. So Tulane was always, or the winner of the American was always going to be in the playoffs. But Duke pulled off the craziest thing ever, winning the ACC at 8-5. Because of that, JMU became the highest ranked conference champion. Now, what do I think about us having 2 Group of 5s in the playoffs? I fucking love it. I think it is the epitome of college football to have this kind of crazy shit happen. But a lot of people disagree. A lot of people think it is the worst thing to happen, that we should absolutely change the rules, that we need to completely revamp the college football playoffs because of this one fucking thing. Now, am I a little biased? For sure. I am a graduate of James Madison University. I went to every single game when I was there. I've been to games every single year since, 1 or 2 at least. I'm going to try to go to the playoff game. Am I a little biased? For sure. But I would be saying the same thing if it was a different team, if UNLV made it, or obviously we could only have one American team make it, but if somehow, it doesn't matter. If there was two group of 5 teams that weren't including JMU, I would still feel the same way because I get it. They're not part of the 12 best teams in America. But if you remove the chance for them to make the playoffs, what are they playing for? Give these guys a hope. That's all it's been. It was one spot in the playoffs for like 100 teams, a little less. I don't know how many are in the group of 5 versus the power 4, but like 80 teams. One of them is going to get into the playoffs just to give them a shot. Now it's 2 this year, but that's the ACC's fault. That's not the playoff. That's not JMU's fault. That's not the American Conference's fault. It's the ACC's fault. They brought 17 teams into their conference, and they only play 8 conference games. So half these teams don't even come close to playing each other, right? And because of that, you had a wonky season where you had like 6 teams tied for first in the conference, and Duke happened to have the tiebreaker because they didn't fix the tiebreaker rules from when they were only like a 12-team conference. So if you're mad at JMU for being in the playoffs, be mad at the ACC and be mad at UVA. If UVA wins the game, they're in the playoffs, but they fucking lost. So why are you getting so mad about a group of 5 team being in it? Well, I'm sure a lot of you are saying, I want to watch the best football. I want to see good football games. They're not going to play a close game. I want to watch good football too. That's why Saturday morning, I turned on the BYU Texas Tech game. I wanted to watch some good football. Oh shit, that wasn't good football. That was terrible. You know what? It's just one game. I'm going to turn the SEC championship game on. That's some good football right there. Well, fuck. That was even worse than the first game. I was bored out of my mind. So I turned on the third game. The third game was really good. I'm not being sarcastic about that. Third game was phenomenal. Even though it was only 13-10, I loved it. I also loved seeing that Indiana's leading rusher is actually from JMU. He went there 2 years ago. That's just one guy. Oh, the guy that caught the Indiana's only touchdown? Oh, he's from JMU too. He's also the leading receiver this year. Well, that's just 2 guys, Oh, Indiana's number 1 corners from JMU. Indiana's number 1 linebackers from JMU. And their coaches from JMU. That's just one team, though. Yeah, that's just one team. That's just Kurt Signetti. Just what are the odds? Well, it turns out the ACC's champion, Duke, their quarterback was at Tulane last year, a group of 5 team. Now he's an ACC champion. Okay, well, what about other quarterbacks in the country? Turns out Diego Pavia, who is a Heisman candidate, I think he's favored on DraftKings to win it. Not that that really means anything. He's a New Mexico State transfer. It turns out these group of 5 teams have legit players that can compete. Now, I know as a whole team, they're not on the same level. JMU's playing at Oregon. That's probably not going to be a good game, right? But it's the hope. That's what kind of sports is about. Underdogs, upsets. No one actually thinks JMU can compete, right? Because they lost to Louisville. Oh, wait, who else lost to Louisville? The actual best team in the ACC, Miami, did. JMU went to Louisville week 2 of this season. JMU's starting quarterback tore his ACL the last game of the regular season in 2024. So what is that, like 7 months ago, 8 months ago? And then he went to Louisville just that time, barely being a few weeks back from contact approved, and had to play at that game. So he's on a snap count. They're playing a 2 QB system. It looked like a mess, 100%. I'm not going to deny that the JMU Louisville tape looked good. But that JMU team was not at full strength because Alonzo Burnett was not actually at his full strength. And Wayne Knight hadn't gotten going either, right? But here's the thing. JMU actually out-totaled Louisville in the running game. And they're only -1 to total yards. So offensively, they did the same thing. JMU actually led for 3 quarters of that game despite their backup quarterback having 25 plus snaps. The only reason that the game looked terrible is JMU had a really bad drive where, Louisville finally took the lead. Then they had a 3-and-out, some bad play calling. I was pissed when I was watching it. And then the running back, who was very good, ran for an 80-yard run. He just ripped it off. Big plays happen sometimes, right? But for the most part, that game was JMU was leading and it was tied like with 6 minutes left in the 4th quarter. When Louisville went to Miami, again, a top 10 team in the country, Louisville outgained Miami on the ground 119-63. Carson Beck threw 4 interceptions, right? So Miami looked way worse versus Louisville than JMU did. And that was a JMU team, again, with week 2 of the season, just finding themselves out. And then at Louisville, Miami had them at home. Team was cruising. They're number 3 in the country at the time. And Louisville went there and stomped on them. So to say that JMU is worlds worse because the Louisville defensive line looked really good against their offensive line is crazy because Miami looked just as bad, right? And they have multiple first round potential guys on their roster. And here's the thing. You want good games? I already told you that the blowouts happen with the good teams, right? But here's another fun fact. Last year in the college football playoffs, not a single group of 5 team played in the first round because Boise had a bye because the way the playoff was structured. The average margin of victory in the first round last year was 19.25. That doesn't sound like good games to me. So you had no group of 5 team, yet there was blowouts all over the place. And you had an Indiana team last year that was playing Notre Dame, and yeah, the final score was 27-17, but they were down 27-3 with like no time left. That wasn't a close game at all. And since the college football playoffs have had a thing, that the 14 playoffs, 8 out of the 11 title games have been decided by multiple scores. 6 of them being 17 plus scores. So we're talking about, oh, I don't want to watch a blowout. Blowouts happen all the time in college football. It's part of it. It is part of it. So you're getting mad at a team like JMU for sneaking into the playoffs because the ACC botched their schematics, right? And then you're getting mad because you don't want to see a blowout when we saw multiple blowouts in the conference championship games. And we've watched multiple national championship games be blowouts. That's how college football is. There's blowouts. It sucks. You know, I want to watch a good game too, but I also want to see these guys have a chance. Because here's the thing with these group of 5 teams. Yeah, it sucks for Texas, BYU, Notre Dame not to get in. I get it. But you have these small schools that get gutted every single year by the big dogs. You have Florida, Auburn, UCLA hiring these coaches away from these programs, bringing in all their transfers. So you never know when this will be the last year one of these teams will be this good. You have USF losing their head coach to Auburn. And you know what's crazy? You talk about a group of 5 teams, they don't have the talent to compete. I saw multiple people talking about Auburn will have the best QB it's had in years when they bring in USF QB Byron Brown over to them. Now I'm not saying he's guaranteed to transfer yet, but they're saying that because they want the group of 5 players on their team so bad because they're good. Yes, I know the overall roster isn't as good, but the teams can still compete. The teams can still play hard. The teams still deserve to get a shot. We have people saying we need to get rid of automatic bids completely because of this 1 year. 1 year. Next year, the ACC will probably fix their problems with the tiebreakers, and they'll have, Miami or whoever the best team in the ACC is making it as a conference champion. Obviously, Miami did make it. It's 1 year. Let it be. Let it just be. Let these teams have a shot of making it. It's okay if one or once in a while 2 group of 5 teams make it. Because here's the thing, underdogs is what sports is about. I want you to do a little exercise here. I want you to think about your 5 favorite sports movies, right? Your 5 favorite. I bet you at least half of them involve some sort of underdog story. Underdogs could be multiple things, playing better teams or playing against adversity. But think about your 5 favorite sports movies. It's all about these underdogs performing something crazy, going against the odds and winning a game. Is JMU likely to beat Oregon? No. Is Tulane likely to beat Ole Miss? No. Is next year's group of 5 champion likely to beat whoever they play? No. But I'm telling you what, when that upset happens, it'll be the goddamn best thing college football has seen in years. Because that is what makes this sport great, is the potential any given Saturday. You go on the gridiron, anyone could win.